and welcome to AutoToday. My name is Dipayan and you're joining me at the Budh International Circuit where we get our first taste of this, the world's fastest MG. This is the MG Cyberster and this is our full review. Stick around. Now, the perfect place to start the story of the Cyberster is of course design, and even from a first glance you can tell where the inspiration lies. It actually draws on inspiration from the original two-seater sports car, the MGB, and that is something that you can tell straight away from the form thanks to the long bonnet, the stocky rear end, and of course the fact that you have a two-seater with a rag top. But it's when you take a step closer that you realize that this car is not just reincarnated in spirit, but under the hood is an electric all-wheel drive absolute beast. But it's in the details and it's in the design that really give away just how modern this MG Cyberster is. Starting with the front, where you get these really cool projector LED headlamps, and you gotta love these DRLs with these insert designs that really set it apart. Now, we haven't really had a chance to test out how these lights work, but in terms of visual appeal alone, god damn. Now, the thing that you have to know about the MG Cyberster is how much this form is dictated by the way air flows over it. This has a coefficient of drag of 0.26, which is incredible. And that's where you see all these aero elements on the bumper, a splitter here on the chin, a splitter here, and an active vent that actually opens out to cool the system while you're driving, which is really cool. But it's something that we've gotten used to on electric cars, but it's when you step on the profile that things start to get even cooler. And when we're talking about active aero, of course there are these slats in the bumper that help to channel cool air over the wheels and the brakes and tire them, and come out from here in the fender, which essentially cools the brakes and the wheels. But it's not until you take a closer look at the wheels and the brakes you get a sense of just how serious MG is when it comes to the MG Cyberster and what makes it MG's fastest car in the world. Now, you get 20-inch rubber P0s, lightweight alloys, and Brembo piston 4-piston calipers for the brakes, which means that you can go from 100 to 0 in just 33 meters, which is incredible when you consider that this car is actually quite heavy and it's carrying a 77 kilowatt hour battery right in the center. Another indicator of just how nice the MG is going to be on the track is the wheelbase and the fact that the wheels are pushed right to the corners of the car. You have a 2690mm wheelbase, which really does spread out the wheels and give you that perfect balance and set you up for that 50-50 weight distribution, which, by the way, is something that is a part of the engineering package on the Cyberster. There are the cool bits like these electric scissor doors, which of course add to the appeal. I mean, parked up with the door like this, how cool does it get? But it gets slightly cooler when you step on the back. So let's step to the back and tell you what the rear end of the MG Cyberster is really like. Well, we were talking about aero when it comes to the Cyberster, as you can tell by this really cool ducktail that's been integrated into the short, stubby rear end. But it's once you step over that you get a sense of just how attractive this lighting is. Of course, you get wraparound LED lightings with these arrow patterns, and they're set on a black gradient, which really makes it stand out and look distinguished. Of course, this massive diffuser is an actual aero part of the car and helps to keep the force really nice and low while you're driving, and it helps to ensure that there is minimum air drag and slip here to ensure that there is maximum grip at the rear wheels, which is something that is really cool to have, especially considering how fast this car really is and how fast it gets from 0 to 200. That is something we'll show you once we're on the inside and we're driving. But for now, that's the design. Let us know in the comments what you think about the MG Cyberster. And what's a two-seater sports car if it doesn't get a rack top? And the MG Cyberster has one, except that it'll go from a two-seater drop top like this to a fully covered two-seater sports car in about 11 seconds, whether you're standing still or you're moving up to 50 kilometers an hour. Now, the system itself, I've seen it deploy and reinforce itself. And there are multiple reasons why it is smooth and it feels premium and it fits the part of the two-seater sports car that it is. but you really get a sense of how cool the MG Cyberster is once you're on the inside. So let's get in and tell you what the MG Cyberster is like. So now that we're inside the MG Cyberster, let's talk a little bit about the interiors. Now, MG says it's a driver-focused cabin, and that is something you get a sense of the moment you're in the driver's seat. The entire display setup is focused at the driver. As you can see, you have a triple screen display with a 10-inch screen in the middle and two 7-inch screens on the flank. Now, they're all angled towards the driver, so you get a maximum display of information without really having a lot of screen off time, and that is something that intuitively comes to you when the designer is keeping the driver in focus. You also get this really nice flat bottom steering wheel, which of course comes to the hand really nicely and is wrapped in leather. Now, when we're talking about the upholstery, it is premium, but it is sustainable. The leather is a leatherette material, but it feels really good to touch, and there is also this sustainable suede in these Y-shaped seats. Now, the seats themselves are electrically adjustable. You do get ventilation, and they are pretty comfortable. Even on the track, when we were putting down speed, there was enough bolstering to keep me in my seat, and I wasn't really sliding around, which is something that I really like. Now, talking about this center console, one of my favorite aspects is this carbon fiber inlay on the dash, which looks really cool. This forged carbon fiber looks slightly better than your standard carbon fiber finish, and it really adds to the presence of the cabin. Of course, you do get these two cup holders that are adjustable for depth, which means no matter how large or small your cup is, it is going to fit pretty comfortably in the Cyberster. You also get a small storage with a wireless charger under the armrest, and that is about it. But overall, this cabin is a really nice place to be, and it feels premium. It feels slightly above its 75 lakh rupee price tag, and that is a theme that we continuously see with this Cyberster, that it punches above its weight, and that's something that stays true in the cabin as well. So we've just come back from driving the MG Cyberster around the track, and we've got our first taste of MG's fastest car and the world's fastest MG. So the headlines first: 510 horsepower, 725 Nm of torque, 0 to 100 with boost mode in 3.2 seconds. But it's not just about the power and the way it drives, it's about the engineering that has gone into the Cyberster, and that is something you feel from the driver's seat. That 50-50 weight distribution is something you feel the moment you put it around the corner. You feel that there is a very nice balance between the front end and the rear end of the vehicle, which is something that you can really only get in an electric car. Now, the power distribution is a 60-40 split, with the majority going to the rear. Again, this is something that you do feel. We had a wet track today, so there were damp patches, and there were times when you felt the rear step out to give you that additional degree of turn, and that is something that really increases the amount of engagement. But where it really gets good is the steering feel. Because of the double wishbone suspension in the front, you really do feel your way through every corner. There is constant progression at the wheel, and it never really feels light or out of place. This is a car that you can really put through its paces. Now, to talk about the driving modes, there are 3 driving modes: normal, comfort, and super sport. Of course, most of the time on the track we were in super sport mode, and it felt really good. There was constantly grip. Gotta hand it to these Pirelli P0 tires. They are chunky, they're staggered, which means you have more surface area at the rear for grip, but you gotta give it to these tires for the amount of grip that they give you, and for the amount of confidence that they inspire. Even in the wet, you constantly feel like you can push the envelope, and that is where the Cyberster really stands out. Not just in the way that it goes fast in a straight line, but also the way it goes around corners. Now, the Cyberster is an EV, so you don't really get much sound, but you do get 2 sound modes that you can choose from. One is an electro induction engine, which is the futuristic electric kind of sound. Then, of course, if you're a purist like me, you'll enjoy the fuel sports car, which puts that ice sound back in this EV, and it adds to the driving experience. Of course, they play out of the 8 Bose speakers, but it's an immersive enough experience, and if you tend to forget for a second, you might even think it's a sports car. Now, we spent the better part of today driving the MG Cyberster around the Budh International Circuit, not just on the track, but also around the slalom course to get a sense of what this car is really like. And there's one thing that makes itself very, very clear. MG has thrown the kitchen sink at this car, and it shows. I mean, for 75 lakh rupees ex-showroom, this is probably the most technology, the most performance, and the most speed and fun you're going to get for your buck. This is undoubtedly one of the better cars you can buy in the country right now. 0 to 100, 3.2 seconds, engineered by a former F1 engineer, and it's something that you can feel on the track. There's great performance, there's great grip, and for 75 lakh ex-showroom for 500 horsepower, I mean, sure, it's electric, but maybe it's time for the purists to consider something other than ICE. Thank you so much for tuning in to our review of the MG Cyberster. If you like the review, of course, smash that like button because it means so much for us and our channel's growth. And if you haven't subscribed to the AutoToday channel yet, this is your chance to do that now, and make sure you hit that bell icon so you're notified every time we drop a new review or a feature. Thank you so much for watching. This is Didi signing off.